Hello and welcome to another episode of 33 Conversations. I'm your host. I almost said I'm your co-host, but I am your host, Michael Abney, and I have conversations with founders about what's underneath the surface of what we're building and why, and just understanding the humans that are building meaningful things in the world while the rest of the world is sort of collapsing, and interesting takes that you've got to navigate on that journey. And today I'm really blessed to have Dr. Diane Dye. You are a chief management consultant for CEOs. You're the people that call when their strategy runs out and they don't know what to do next. Thank you so much for being here today and being a part of 33 Conversations. I appreciate it. Welcome.
I am so excited to be here, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So on our pre-call, we connected because we're doing similar things. So it was just interesting to connect with that, first of all, in your energy and your light, but also too, like getting to know more about you as I prepared for today's podcast. There's just a lot of similarities. So I really am excited to have our conversation today be about like talking about the way things used to be and how that you see them evolving, and how can people like us play a role in helping others evolve. Because like for me, the mission-driven founders is everything, because it's like, how can I help the least amount of people and make the largest amount of impact? And I am that, so I love supporting because I intimately know how easy it is to get tripped up, stopped, delayed, and how that affects our confidence and ultimately what comes out in the world. When I think about, like, do you ever think about how many people had really amazing ideas but just didn't have the mindset to get them across the finish line? It's kind of sad,
absolutely. Right? And there's so many different subtopics, and what you just said, Michael, they're so profound, but I want to not leave one on the floor, and that's that the way things used to be, right? And I recently had someone very wise, tell me there are two reasons to look back into the past: to praise yourself or to learn what you would like to do better today. And those are your two reasons. And I love that because it's actually really aligned with experimentation strategy and where I go with it, and looking at how you experiment to make today better.
Okay, that right there, that alone just gives me chills, because we're so trained to do things right and be perfect. If it's not that, it didn't work. That's the end of it. End of story. Oh, my God, I used to live that. I still have echoes of that, because you can't take 60 years of training yourself to get her done, to like, it doesn't work anymore. Like everything in 2020 stopped working the way that I thought, or that I knew that it worked. And so now seeing that it's more of what we're starting to explore and understand and experiment with, about how do you shift from that, whatever that was, to more of the human heart-centered.
Well, and I love it that you just dropped 2020, right? Because 2020 really was the big shift. And in 2020, I published my workbook, Creating Critical Opportunity, because there were some companies that I was working with that were on the verge of going out of business during the pandemic. Their entire worlds got flipped upside down in a matter of a day or two. And to be able to see that differently, to be able to see that as, okay, I've been disrupted. This is an opportunity to do something I would not have done naturally. That became a gift I could give them, and a framework that was born of my master's thesis that I could give them to say, okay, wait, this has happened. I'm going to come into awareness, consciousness, and humility about what has happened instead of denial, disavowal, and ego, because that's where the majority of the world went. And I think when you say, things aren't the way they used to be, right? That is a statement that can be rested in, but is laden with denial, disavowal, and ego of the present. and what gifts, I mean, they call, right, and it's so cliche, but it's so true. They call it the present because it's a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Very difficult to get that gift, though.
It is. It's hard. It's hard
Because,
to stay
yeah,
in the present moment. And that's where awareness, consciousness, and humility, which is the first stage of critical opportunity thinking, comes in. Because just like any experimentation, you have to understand and be aware of, what are you experimenting with? What environment are you experimenting with? What are the things you're actually measuring, and what does success look like? And that's more than awareness. Awareness is, okay, yes, this is happening, and I can acknowledge that. Consciousness is really going deeper with that and having the courage. And the courage to go deeper comes from the removal of the ego, which is, I'm either too good to be doing this, or I'm not good enough to be doing this. When you do that, you can actually tune yourself as a leader to be an experimentalist. So when these things come up, you are not the person who is firefighting. You are the person who is now innovating. And people are like, whoa, we just made our next million.
and there's an entire universe in that way, in that little gap from the firefighter to the innovator. So let's spend a little time here, because this is really key. In case somebody's has not gotten it fully yet, everything that used to work is collapsing. It doesn't work anymore. Like, there's a reason for it. I don't have the answer to it. I just know that it's happening, and I know I'm a part of it in some way, and I keep opening up to that more and more every day. Like, how can I help? But there's this moment where or everybody's got to choose. Like, I can't put out another fire right now. I cannot put out another fire. Like, literally, I'm done. Like, just let it burn all the way down. And then there's the space that comes out of that. Then there's a possibility, because it only lives as a possibility, that something new can happen. And I assert that folks like us help people get through that space really quickly, and that it doesn't have to, because that's where you get stuck. Because you get stuck in your ego, and you're at your end of the rope, and you have nowhere else to go. A lot of times that will harden somebody to try to go even deeper into that ego state. And it's ridiculous at the first thing, but like, I understand the power, especially as a male, having that, all of the messages growing up about this is how life is. Like, you just keep until you bring it to its knees, except for that doesn't work anymore. Like, we were all brought to our knees. And I mean, there's a potential that was just like a little sneeze. Like, there's a potential, like, what if the whole thing, like, if everything's collapsing, there's got to be something new coming up. And we know the system's not going to, hey, we had an awakening. Sorry, we're bad. Here's how it is now. There's no white horse out there, and there's no illusion that that's coming. It's a reality that it's us. It's the people. It's like the literal human beings that are going to come together, and like the humanity of all of us is what connects us.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're not going to, I'm a stand that we do not lose that thread. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also to challenge your listeners to think about these pauses like your favorite coffee cup. When it's full, you can't fit any more coffee. You have to drink some to get more coffee. You can't keep pouring coffee in. You can't generate new without some level of emptying out right now. And it's the way that you really frame strategically this pause, this disruption, this deterioration. You know, what is it? You must empty. You must crumble. You cannot build a new building on top of another building and expect it to be structurally sound. You have to demolish that building to do that, right? So your pause can be powerful or it can be painful, and it is your choice. It is literally your choice. You are the closest to the decision maker in your life. And guess what? It's you. So when you understand that you are the control variable, now you get to work on those masks that are keeping you from seeing that pause as an ability to step into that powerful innovation versus that that desire to see that as pain.
Yes. So was that how you popped out? Like, because I've had it. I'm sure you have too, or you wouldn't be here. Like, if you've had this experience in your own life. So instead of telling somebody how to do it, what was your experience that how did you shift from firefighter? Because we were all firefighters. We were all really good ones. I was really good at it. I could put out fires like no tomorrow. I had a hair salon. So those girls, they had a fire every day. And if they didn't have one, they would go light one to blow up there was always this element of self-sabotage that was always going on. And it was until the awareness that I can't not do this anymore.
Well, here's the deal, Michael. The fires will come. And it's not about this moment where you go, I was a firefighter, but now I'm this experimentalist, and this is how I did it and how I became a different person. We are all battling struggles every day. And it's how we approach those struggles, because some of them are true fires. We didn't see them coming. But can we approach them like the fire chief, who strategically looks at how to approach the fire? Or are we going to be the fireman with the hose? And I think this is where some executives really get bogged down, because they grab the hose from the nearest fireman and they start spraying. And there's no problem with spraying alongside other firefighters if you need be. But what that does is it takes you off of the ability to see the 30,000 foot view of the result of what you are doing. So step one is to realize that in order to scale, I must not grab the hose. So my story around this is actually fairly recent. One of the masks that I wear super well is lone wolf mask. And this lone wolf mask that I know how to do it. I can do it quickly. No one does it better. So I am just going to get in there because it'll take less time if I do it.
Such a lie. Oh,
it's such a lie, but it's also that lone wolf mask is a control mask. So there are two types of masks that you can wear: a protective mask that protects others, and a control mask that is highly protective of you. So this control mask of the lone wolf really has, in the very recent past, stopped me from serving more, from bringing in new ideas that are multiplied to others' benefits. And when I started viewing it like that, I started looking at the things that were not in, what many call the zone of genius, right? And one of them is the sales function, right? I'm a great educator. I am super great at appearing on podcasts, and I'm excited to be that I'm here. And I'm really good in that realm. And actually, the aha came when I realized that I was starting to I was splitting. It was like personality splitting. And it's very hard as an executive to be the person with the boots on the ground, doing the invoicing, doing the sales, doing all the things. And it's necessary at the front end of the business. But when you begin to scale, as I have, you have to look at those things. I had to look at those things and say, all right, it's time to release. It's time to see this as the old way and understand that the way things were are not going to bring me to where I'm going to be able to be useful at all. So if I don't give that up, I have another statement that I've heard, that everything I've tried to let go of has claw marks in it. I had to release some of those lone wolf claw marks and accept that I'm walking this journey of life with others, and those others are working with me already. And the behavior that I'm doing is I'm jumping in and I'm taking the hose from them. I'm doing this. So that's gonna limit me. That's gonna limit anyone who tries to do it. So I think that on a personal note, I'm still walking that journey and walking it every day. And I think that grace is very important for anyone who's listening to have with themselves. That yes, sometimes a firefighter is going to come up, but when you look at that fire and really come into yourself and go, okay, what is my natural compulsion here? And how can I do this differently now? I think that's where the power really comes in, and taking that pause and not sitting in the pain of the pause, but the power of the pause, saying, okay, what is my one next step? Just one. What question do I need to ask? What action do I need to take? And doing that one thing and allowing iteration to occur versus trying to force things.
Tell me more about how this leads into what you've created with your innovation cohorts that you're creating for CEOs. Is it for CEOs?
It is for C-level, so CEO, COO, Chief Experience Officer.
Okay.
But also they're curated. So they're curated for founders, owners, C-level, VP, SVP, but executive level. The place in business where it gets very lonely, 70% of executives are operating in this lone wolf state. They're operating, lone wolf is not anything that's uncommon, but it's not safe sometimes not to be. The reason why a wolf becomes a lone wolf is because some material threat has threatened their existence and they must split off from the pack. And it's technically, you don't want to be going to your board with the problems of the company. They want to see solutions. They want to see upward trends. They want to see what you're doing to resolve and address the changes in the market and the environment today. They don't want you to come to the quarterly board meeting and say, I don't know what to do. What do you think? Wow, that would be detrimental, right? Same thing sometime across C-levels. Your rank and file are the wind in your sails as an executive. But when you don't know where you're pointing the sails, they're a wind to nowhere. So these rooms exist in very large formats, or they exist in formats where you get a hot seat and one person gets all the focus. I modeled the CEO innovation cohort actually after my doctoral cohort and my master's cohort, because I was laid off while I was creating critical opportunity method. I was laid off 4 months into my master's program. I had equity stake in a software company, and I'm really great at automating myself out of work. That's why I'm a consultant. Because, I get in there, I fix the thing, yay, good for you, and we're out. It took me a while to recognize this pattern. But ultimately, when that happened again, I was 4 months into my master's program at USC Annenberg, and it's my dream school. And I called in unemployment, and they said, you're going to have to be available to accept any and all work, which means no master's program for you, Missy. And I was leveled. That was my personal being leveled, period, where I was stunned, and I went to my professor, and one thing USC does very well is they teach you to work in groups. 90% of my master's was a group work, which is both terrifying and edifying because we really bonded. And I went to my professor, and I went to my small group, and I said, this is happening. And the most powerful question was asked me, what do you actually want? What do you actually want? And I said, I want this program, and I want my firm that I've been doing on the side all this time. I've been, freelancing and gig working and doing I want that. And they said, then do it. We're here for you. And that was the most powerful thing. And it echoed when I rejoined USC Rossier School of Education for my doctorate, because we're working on something really hard, and we're all working on different things, but we're working together. We're going together. We're not lone wolves. And I mean, net, I wouldn't be, here today if it weren't for my cohort saying, start your firm. But I also wouldn't be here and wouldn't be Dr. Diane Dye if it weren't for my cohort again, because I was told not to change anything during my program. And of course, me being the bullheaded person I am, I changed everything, and it went south. And when it went south, I had that cohort there holding the space, and I had a great dissertation chair who told me, you're not behind. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. And sometimes that's what you need. So I started the CEO Innovation cohort because these rooms don't exist. They don't exist in a place where you're non-competing. You don't have to pretend to be doing better than you already are. It's safe to be in a room of 10 people who are under non-solicit, so no one's going to sell you anything. They're under confidentiality, so no one's going to tell anything. And they're under indemnification, so if you need to share where the bodies are buried to get better perspective, you can. This room doesn't exist, so I'm creating it because I think it's important. And I don't think that it should be restricted to being in a small group in college. I think a lot of people who have been blessed to have that experience miss it. And using my frameworks, using critical opportunity thinking, using the 5x5 method, using various frameworks to guide those discussions, I think it's just going to be incredibly powerful. Teaching experimentation especially is going to be really valuable in a time where the world is changing fast. And I personally believe that business problems should never be faced alone.
I agree. Or any problem, actually.
Any problem. Yeah, exactly.
We're all connected. We're all connected. We're all connected. I was going to go off on a tangent, but I'm not going to. There's that I'm not going to do it. But so tell me. So when you're working with these guys and gals, what is the toll that you see that they bring in that they don't see yet?
There's a lot we don't. There's a lot we don't see until others see and experience it in us. Yeah, there's a lot we don't see, and sometimes we can look in the mirror and still not see it because that's experimentation bias in its purest form. We all have places that we come from in life. We all have experiences we come from in life. But when it's us measuring us, it's kind of like if you've ever tried to edit your own work. It's always going to come back with a typo. Right? It's the same thing. So I think the number one thing that executives come to is that this lone wolf, this facing the issues alone, or strategic ambiguity, is just incredibly confounding. It's incredibly isolating, and it's very hard to actually see the experiment when the experiment involves you. So what I
For real.
encourage people to do is to put on a different hat. So what does that mean? It's activating this concept of being the observer. And when you activate a concept of being an observer, you decide that you're a researcher, you're an experimenter, you're a curious kid, you're a reporter. Whatever hat that you can put on, that becomes the overall covering for that. And then when you look at it, you can start to identify, okay, where am I being my best closer? Where am I wearing the lone wolf mask? Where am I being the firefighter? And you can look at it in such a way that isn't you looking at you. It's that persona looking at you. So constructing that, you can air out, yeah, maybe this is true because A, B, C, D, E, this is absolutely true. I validate what I am thinking. And yes, you are completely validating what you're thinking. But with the hat, you get to challenge. Say, maybe this isn't true because, and you can start testing the true, not true. And when you do that non-true, true binary against each other, something really powerful starts to happen. You begin to see possibility. So maybe this is possible. And that becomes your research question.
Okay. So how do you get, or what's your observer perspective? So if you were looking at you, enrolling folks into the cohort, what's the piece that has them say yes? Or do you experience a resistance? Because, what we're offering is the looking in the mirror, and that's actually probably one of the scariest things on the planet is to look at ourselves. Really?
People say yes is because there is a longing for community, but the communities that are offered are not as entirely safe or easy to do. So I also formed this because I was really
you get into the collective energy, right?
Yeah.
Because it's different than the lone. It's so
Yeah.
different than the lone wolf. It's vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable there.
I started observing why I would join these big groups. And then within 6 months, a year or so, I would just dip. Like, I would just be like, this is not for me. I got to go. And it happened on such a frequency, right? So in research strategy, you look for themes, right? And I saw this theme. And this theme was I would join a group. I would go all in, right? And then a number of things happened. I was the number one helper in the room. I was not in a room of people who could necessarily elevate me. I was constantly elevating everybody else. 2, I never got the hot seat. Like I would be in the room, even if it was a small group, everyone got chosen for a hot seat. You got chosen for a hot seat. And the dirty little industry secret is it's usually the person who spends the most or engages the most or has the most upsell opportunity that gets that hot seat. So I never got the hot seat. So my problem never got addressed. 3, I got sold nonstop by the people who were in the room and by the people who had put me in the room. And it was, I remember one group in particular where I went in and introduced myself and started to make friends. And all of a sudden I had every meeting on my calendar to say hi. And every meeting on my calendar to say hi ended with a sale, a pitch. It got really uncomfortable because I felt like, wow, like I'm just not a person in this room. I'm a target. So I walked into this room feeling like a target.
That's a thing.
And the other one,
where does that come from? Like, because this is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's like I get people want to sell and they want to do what they do, but can you see what the disconnect is? That I've had that happen to me where I thought I've had a really amazing connection, and they were like, "Yeah, let's talk again," and it turned into like
Yeah.
like it was like literally not this podcast, but like another one. I had somebody that was yeah, but then we meet again, but the yeah was to it was a it's like okay, there's two different people here. Like, where's the person that I met earlier?
Exactly.
Not that I wouldn't have wanted to do business with this person, but it was just such a dramatic like shift.
Yeah.
I like it caused a mistrust because I didn't know what was happening. Like it was
Yeah.
this weird like I
I think people get caught in the I'm supposed to. So they set goals for rooms. They maybe they're not the individual who is the boss, and they have goals imposed upon them. They enter these rooms with a motive, with an agenda. And I don't want to make wrong on that, because there are rooms for that. Absolutely,
God,
there
yeah.
are rooms for that. But we tend to show up the way we've been taught across the board, whether we're children all the way up through adulthood. We show up the way we're taught, and if that's the way we're taught, that's the way we're going to enter every room. And if that's being done with us, and I don't want to say to us because that's very victimy, that's the way that's being done with us, we're going to say, oh, that's the environment here, and then that environment perpetuates environment.
Yeah, because it never gets questioned. So like when you said that, because I've had a lot of sales training. I've trained sales. I've worked for companies where I pretended to be a salesperson to like understand how the training was going. Like I've been seeing all aspects to this. I think people will like be really shocked about the detail that goes into like for instance, one of the companies was a bathroom renovation type thing. And I thought it was a great product, when you look at the end thing, but like when you get under the hood and you're like, oh my God, this entire thing about how people are sitting and like all of this structure that's behind it, that's all psychological, or they think it's psychological, like is at play, but never really addressing that there's a freaking human being in front of you. Like, so when I was in the experience, like I remember like my first month, I did like more than anybody ever did in the company because I wasn't really working for them. I didn't have like, they didn't know that, but I didn't have the pressure of it. And so that's why it wasn't there. And I don't pay any attention to that stuff. I connect with somebody and it's like, yeah, some people can't, and there's a product for everybody. It's like, and you could get a bathroom done many, many different ways, but it's like, how is this, what's a fit for that human being on the other side? Are they older? They want to get done quickly. Like, what's the value proposition basically? And that is, I think gets mixed up with the wiring that it's so ingrained because we've been doing it for so long that we don't even realize we're doing it until somebody comes along and we have a problem where it stops working, 2020, hello. And then that's what causes that choice point of the breakdown. And is this going to be a total collapse, like how far down the rabbit hole are you going to go? Or you meet people like us, it's like, no. This is your doorway. This is the threshold into everything you ever dreamed of if you can get your head right. So.
And I'm thinking too, like when you're in bigger rooms, you're not going to connect with everyone. And depending on who you are personally, like I'm neurodivergent. And it takes me a bit. Like I'm much better one-on-one conversations. 2-on-1, I start to get a little nervous. 3-on-1, I'm internally just spazzing out. Right? That's just me. If you ever meet me, my breath will quicken just a little bit. Like it's a thing, right? Yeah. So everybody has their own orientations to how they do in big rooms, but when you're in a bigger room, even when I was in a bigger room at USC, I was much more holding my stuff to the chest Then when I got into my small group, when I got one-on-one, when I got to the point where I could take the kind of the flatness of it all and round it out with some humanity and knowing people. And there are very small pods of people that I'm very close with, but you normally don't get close. And unless you're able to cultivate that for yourself and combat the sales thing and combat the I didn't get the hot seat and combat the I'm busy helping everyone, then you're not going to get any value out of the room, or you might get one thing, but it's like I've just gone to school versus I've entered a lab. So I wanted to create a lab that people could work on real issues without the risk, without being sold, without having to wait for the hot seat, lots of active experimentation. So it's not an extra thing to do, because a lot of things are like, oh, I got to go to this thing. It's an extra thing to do. So, fifth, this is not an extra thing to do. This is actually you doing your work. Only it's you're doing your work with a cohort. You're doing your work together. So it's not this extra program that I'm doing or this thing that I'm doing. It's just what you're doing. And that's what I was doing when I was doing my dissertation. I was just doing my dissertation. Like, it wasn't something extra to have a meeting with my small group, because we were all just working on something that was really sticky to us. And we were all working on different topics, but we were all working together. And I thought that was just so cool. And just to recreate that, it brings me joy. It's what I call joy space. It brings me joy. They say if you can't find the room you want to be in, build it. So I took up that challenge.
Yeah, I did too. So, but like, I think the thing that we don't talk about very often is like the outcomes that people have. Like, isn't that extraordinary to see? Like, the outcomes. I mean, a lot of times it just seems like, oh, this is the way it is now. But it's just like, I'm like, oh yeah, like this wouldn't be happening had that little thought that I had in my head come out into the world. And everything that it takes to actually have that happen is crazy that it actually happens. We're not stopped. But I also see the power and how much more can be in the world if we make that process more normalized, more streamlined, more normal, that yes, this is exactly how this works. And we need each other. We need the humanity. It's like, what's the point of having 8 billion people here if we're all lone wolves? Like, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if you look at, let's just remove it from humanity and look at the animal kingdom. That's not, once a lone wolf happens, they're at risk. They're at much greater risk when they have become a lone wolf. It increases the chance of that lone wolf dying. And I believe this so much, especially in business, is that when we separate like that out of that self-protective necessity, it's actually the most risky thing we can do, is to separate. But it's the natural thing. It's the natural thing to isolate. There's two natural things actually in that downward spiral of critical opportunity thinking. It's isolation, but the other side of that, I call it joining forces with hate.
Okay.
And joining forces with hate is when you're looking for someone to co-sign the bad behavior, the problem, how bad it is, and you are actually grouping up to the negative detriment. So that is a behavior that is very toxic. It's very harmful to you. It's the flip side of isolation. But that upside, that upswing of gathering support, that's actually not possible until you become into awareness, consciousness, and humility about what you need support on. on that singular, experimentation, that research question. It's very hard to gather support if you don't know what to ask for. And if you don't know what to ask yourself for, that's even harder. So that becomes the big problem, is that we just have a lack of data, a lack of information. So when we don't have that information, assumption creeps in, bias creeps in, you get people raging against the machine, you get people reposting things on social media that are not based in any sort of fact whatsoever. You get people who are angry. You get environments where we really don't support our own humanity. And that's scary to me. So then the natural protective choice, right? Because the control mask of the lone wolf is self-protection, is isolation. I will not participate. I will not participate in this, and I'll work it out myself. So it's a protected thing, and we all do it. Some of us, it's our primary mask. Some of us, it's not. But for those of us where it is the primary mask, it's usually very much like, I'm not going to participate. I'm gonna change what's going on here because I'm uncomfortable with it, but I'm going to do it by myself.
What an amazing conversation. I know we went a little bit longer than I normally do, but it just went there.
It just went there.
Yes, absolutely. Tons of valuable information. But I always ask my guests to leave a little wisdom for whoever we're talking about. So for you, if a CEO is listening and feels like they just hit a wall, running out of time, they're in that sort of stuff. Because what was that? I just heard like a couple of days ago, the most reported business failures, bankruptcies last couple of months that's happened in a really long time. So a lot of people are facing that at the end of the year. What would you tell them? What wisdom would you have for them?
So I have something that I say to my burden visionaries who are struggling. And I tell them, be willing to unlearn what you think you know. It's what you think you know that creates the pain. It's based on the past experience. And again, we don't want to look in the past unless we're praising ourselves or learning from it. But we can't learn from it unless we ask the question. And when you don't know what the question is, don't try to find what the question is alone. Find people to venture with, find people to walk with. This pattern exists. And some people are great at cultivating and curating for themselves, and some people don't know where to begin. So be willing to unlearn what you think you know, and then open up to innovation.
Yeah, and that's why I'm obsessed with facilitation, because there's value in the spaces, because we think that somebody's just going to create that, and I'm going to see it on a feed somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. But the reality is, like what you said earlier on, like, I just got frustrated not seeing it, so I just created it for myself. So you and I are in the same boat there. So thank you so much for joining and sharing your wisdom, what you've got going on, and just extraordinarily valuable conversation today.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really loved being on the show today.
I loved having you on the show. It's amazing. So thank you so much for bringing your clarity and your vision for our listeners today. I really appreciate it. And for everyone out there listening, conversations is where it's at. I'm telling you, have them often. And if you want to have them with CEOs, reach out to Diane. And if you're a founder, have one with me. I have a solution called 33 Strangers, all about the same thing, about getting out of that, I'll borrow your words, getting back in the pack. Yeah. Get back in the pack. That's it. So just stay present, stay honest, and have a conversation today with somebody that you don't even know. Guess what can happen? Maybe the next chapter for you. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it, and we will see you on the next conversation. Bye, guys. Boom.